welcome. Thank you for having me. So as Ann said, chefs are all divas. That's new to me, but I suppose I'm happy to fit the mold. So today my talk is more about the steps I took to realize my dream than about how we're currently living our life. So I'd like to start with a meal. Imagine a meal that could change your life. I had mine when I was 17. It consisted of 4 one-bite amuse-bouches, which are small little one-biters meant to stimulate your appetite, followed by a foie gras torchon, which is a fattened duck liver, like one of the best things to eat on God's green earth, with a truffle coulis, followed by lobster bisque with a vanilla steamed milk, by pumpkin soup with a berry compote, and to finish we had a beef ribeye with glazed pearl onions, thumbelina carrots, and beef consomme. I think from that moment on, food and cooking was all that consumed me. So food has kind of always been a part of my life. As a young child, food was a part of our family life. You know, we had a small garden as kids. We did a fair amount of preserving. Tomato sauce for the winter months. My mother was a fantastic cook. So naturally, it was my first job. I had my first restaurant job when I was 14 at a small fast food restaurant within walking distance from my parents' home. And by the time I turned 15, I don't know what they were thinking, but they gave me a key to the place to let me open and close on the weekends. So within the next year, I started to greatly enjoy cooking more and more, and accepted a position or took a position line cooking in a small casual restaurant in Omaha, and within the year picked up a second job cooking also in a more fine dining restaurant in downtown Omaha. So at this point, 16 years old, working 2 jobs, learning everything I could about food. So as a character flaw of mine, I dive into things without giving them too much thought. So naturally, without a lot of professional guidance, so to speak, I started submitting recipes to cooking schools and contests kind of all over the country that were offering scholarships to culinary schools. Some bit, some did not, and then to much of my surprise, I placed top 10 nationally for a school in Chicago and was invited to go out to Chicago to compete. So during the competition, nervous as you would not believe, and after totally bombing it, I mean like completely bombing it, burning broccoli and cooking chicken past the point of it even being edible, my mother offered me a consolation prize, a dinner or a treat me to dinner at one of the better restaurants in downtown Chicago. Little did I know that this meal was the meal that I described to you earlier that would really change the course of the rest of my life. So at that point, the dream for me was really kind of outlined. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to be a chef, and one day I wanted to transcend from chef to entrepreneur or to business owner. It was just about laying the track and how to get there. So within a year of this meal, I was fully enrolled in culinary school, living on my own in Chicago, and doing everything that I could to get my foot in the door at this particular prestigious restaurant. I mean, I would call every day. I would send my resume. I would send cover letters. I would write the chef notes. I mean, by the end of it, he and I were almost on a first-name basis. Chef Joel, it's Clayton again. How are you today? Anything open? Until one day, when I called and I talked to Chef, he said, Clayton, why don't you come in this weekend and why don't you do a stage with us? A stage in the restaurant industry is kind of like a trial run. It's a way for the chef or the kitchen manager, whoever, to kind of get to know you and for you to get to know the kitchen. And it usually involves doing a lot of stuff that you don't really want to do, like peeling hundreds of pounds of carrots and potatoes and cleaning the kitchen and things of that nature. So I completed my stage, and within a week I was the youngest person in the kitchen to be working there on a part-time basis. but in love. I mean, it's all I thought about. So at that point, I really tried to do everything I could to finish school early. I started doubling up classes, starting class sometimes from 6 or 7 a.m. and finishing, at 10 p.m. at night, just so that I could get more time in the kitchen. And it's kind of like, be careful what you wish for. Because I did end up finishing early, and towards the end of it, I would be up at 6 to actually wash my uniform for school and work in the shower with me, and then ride my bike 10 miles into the city, one hand on the handlebars, the other hand drying my uniform, to go to class for a few hours in the morning, then off to work from, we'll say, like 10:30 in the morning for literally a dead sprint of prep from 10:30 to 5, dinner service from 5 to 10, sometimes to midnight, and then a full 2 to 3 hour clean down. So oftentimes not leaving the restaurant till 1 or 2 a.m. and doing it all over again 6 days a week. But I was in love. I absolutely loved what I was doing. So a year and a half into it, I was finished with school. I kind of gained seniority, so to speak, at the restaurant I was in and worked my way up the ranks. I mean, I was a young dude working with guys, several years older than me. So I was very happy to be where I was at. Except at the end of that year and a half, I think I had pushed so hard that I was just totally spent. I mean, I was exhausted. I was burnt out. So I said, you know what? That's it. Take a break. I'm done. About 4 months later, I found myself on a red-eye flight to Togo, West Africa, to visit my older brother, who started a nonprofit working for the Peace Corps. So he spent 2.5 years over there, and during my short month with him, Africa was a life-changing experience on many levels, but particularly for this talk, for food. Allowed me to really realize the emphasis of not wasting anything, and where all of our food goes to, and how important it is to utilize every resource that you have. So during or after my time in Africa, I was back in Omaha in hopes to be on the bandwagon to Northern California, where the culinary scene had exploded, probably before I was born. But food was very prevalent. Local food was very prevalent. The idea of knowing your farmers and knowing where your food comes from was more common than uncommon. The idea of practicing sustainability within restaurants was more uncommon than uncommon. And I wanted to be a part of it. At the same token, I also wanted to be in Omaha. Born and bred in Omaha, I love Omaha. I love the lifestyle of it. I love the flow of it. And so I was at kind of a crossroads. So during my decision-making process of do I stay or do I go, I was presented with an amazing opportunity to run my own kitchen here in town. And so now the push really became, do I want to go and push for someone else in a city where it's already established? Or do I want to stay in a place that I love and try and build it here? Needless to say, I decided to stay. So I spent the next 2.5 years or so trying to, I suppose, build a name for myself within the restaurant community, to develop relationships with local farmers and growers, and really try to establish community within the local food department. So if you go back, say, 4 years to now, we've developed a list of over 50 farmers that we work with on a regular basis. But it's taken almost 5 years to develop it. So working in kind of a few different local restaurants and trying to build that type of relationship, that type of connection to set something up for the future. I knew I was still working towards that goal or that dream of wanting to open my own restaurant. I just wasn't exactly sure what I wanted that restaurant to be. So 2.5 years now, my wife and I were blessed with a beautiful little boy. Hudson Gray is his name. And it wasn't until Hudson came until I kind of had somewhat of this epiphany, this realization of what I really wanted to do. I needed to open a restaurant that, one, sourced all of its food locally as much as possible, that knew the story behind the farmer, where the food came from, how it was grown, how it was treated before it came to us so that we could show it the same respect before we fed it to our guests. We needed a restaurant that embraced community and that was more than just about feeding people. We needed a restaurant that was comfortable. And most importantly, we needed a restaurant that, to me, practiced a large amount of sustainability, where I guess in restaurants we're so wasteful, right? I mean, we produce so much waste. And so for me, it was a restaurant that left the world, I suppose, or the earth, a better place for our new son. So it was the how do we get there, where are we going? And then I got presented with an unbelievable opportunity, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to open my own restaurant. Thus, the birth of the Grey Plume in Midtown Crossing. So here we are, almost a year into our first year of opening. And there were so many steps, I think, some I mentioned, some I didn't, that led me to be where I'm at today. But I suppose I ask you if there's that thing in your back pocket or that thing in your back mind that you've always dreamed about doing, or what's stopping you to do it. I suppose it's your turn. So, thank you.